Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast Channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Bi-Weekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.
Okay, good evening, Exeter. Welcome to the October 28, 2024 Town of Exeter Select Board meeting. Is the hour 7 o'clock. I'm calling the meeting to order. I'd like to first say good evening to my colleagues on the board. To my right, Selectman Dan Chartrand. Good evening.
Good evening.
To my left, our clerk, Selectwoman Julie Gilman. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
Selectwoman Nancy Belanger. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
We have our town manager, Mr. Rustine. Good evening.
Good evening.
Offline, our assistant town manager, Melissa Roy. Good evening. And my name is Nico Papakostandis. Our recording secretary, Joanna Bartel, will be recording the meeting from the video. And Selectwoman, our vice chair, Selectwoman Molly Cowan, unfortunately is a little under the weather this evening, so we will be without her. And we wish her a speedy recovery, so there'll just be the four of us this evening. But we do have a quorum, so we may move forward. I'd like to say good evening to respective town staff here, those in attendance, and certainly those watching at home. And we'll kick right in with public comment. This is an opportunity for the public to come in and come to the podium and offer comment to the select board. We ask that if your comment is relative to a discussion item, that you wait until that moment on the agenda. But if not, we invite you up to the podium and give your name and address for the record, and we'd like to hear your comment. So. You can step right up there, sir. Good evening.
Hi. My name is Dana Gray. I live at 21 Meadowwood Drive, Exeter, New Hampshire.
Good evening.
And approximately a couple of weeks ago, our neighborhood, the Exeter Meadows Homeowners Association, put a petition to the town. And I understand it's only going to be covered under correspondence, and under correspondence, I will not be able to comment on it. So this petition is here. And my understanding from Jay Perkins and others at the Public Safety is that since Exeter Meadows, Meadowwood Drive and Twin Pond Circle are not on any of your ordinances that I could find, he could find, then it turns over to the state general rules on highways. Mm-hmm. So we affront Ashbrook Road, which is a striped street, mm-hmm. which has a 25 mile per hour speed limit, which nobody follows, but that's what it is. And our street is not striped. It's a dead-end street with 42 homes, sidewalks, kids, dogs, and it's 30 miles per hour. And so the petition with 100% of the residents in present, there's 42 homes, 31 of those were represented at our meeting, unanimously want our speed limit to be 20 miles per hour. So that's the petition. You have it in your correspondence. Is there anything you need from me, or is there any value for me waiting to correspondence just to listen to it again?
First of all, thank you for coming in. Thank you for writing to us, and thank you for the petition. You could have commented during correspondence, but I'm glad you jumped up now because that probably won't be till 9:30 or 10 o'clock tonight. So for your time, I'm very glad that you chose to do public comment. So we can, obviously, we're going to take this under consideration as we would, but I think when speaking with the town manager earlier this afternoon, we may be able to offer you, just a quick update as to where we're at, and certainly we'll be in touch with you moving forward. But Mr. Dean?
So our quick update is that we'll follow up with DOT and get back in touch with you, because one of the rules of changing a speed limit to 20 miles an hour is that you need an engineering study in order to do that, which is something that they require and mandate, and it's actually in the state laws that you can't drop a speed limit down to 20 without that engineering study. So we'll have to coordinate with DOT to see what they say about that piece, and then we'll be back in touch with you.
I think it would be the other way around.
So that's the State Department of Transportation.
Right, and New Hampshire DOT.
Do we know, just offhand, how long that study might take?
Probably and it's hard to anticipate exactly how long the study would take, but I would say that it's probably a queuing issue, and I'd like to hear back from the DOT as far as their timeline, but I can report back to the board and obviously Mr. Gray as well.
So who drives the study, the town or the state?
The town coordinates with the state.
Okay. All right. So we have some sort of control over that.
We do.
Good. Okay.
So how did all the other streets in the town get on the ordinance?
There are just a few that are 20 miles an hour, as far as I know. That goes back quite a ways.
But there are many streets that are on an ordinance, and
Yeah.
lots that are not.
Right, true. There are some that are on and some that are not, and I think it's just probably a combination of the Department of Public Works and citizens over the years coming to the board and asking for speed limit relief
Okay.
as part of that process.
It's just been a common complaint of speeding in our, it's not everybody, obviously, but at 30 miles an hour in a dead-end street with no stripes and sidewalks and kids, 30 is just really,
But I know where you live. It doesn't make sense.
no, it doesn't.
It doesn't make sense.
So,
So what we'll do, two things. From the board's perspective, Mr. Dean will start working on that immediately. He will update the board, but certainly we will use you as the point of contact for the folks that signed the petition, and we'll be in communication with you and try to get this resolved as quickly as we can.
I just want you to know, I've dealt with Jay since I've only lived in the neighborhood for 6 years. He's been a real help to
Yes.
us and me getting information, so.
and that's great to hear.
My kudos to,
Well, we're happy to hear that, but his boss is sitting right behind you, so he's really happy to hear it too.
great. Well, if you got any other questions, fine, otherwise I'll go back home.
You can. You're welcome to join us for the rest of the meeting, but
I don't think
but
so. I've been on the select board and planning boards, and I've had to all of that. So.
We'll be in touch with you. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Good evening, Mr. Zigmond.
Good evening. Good evening, neighbors and members of Select Board. I'm speaking to you tonight about a concern uncovered in my volunteer duties on the Exeter Budget Recommendation Committee. My name is Christopher Zigmond. I live on Crestview Drive. It seems there may be a significant public information gap on town infrastructure projects in the time between warrant article approval and the granular details of execution. A critical example of this can be found on the Epping Road Development Corridor and the TIF project approved by voters in March of 2015. As you may know, and you can see, there is very extensive development, both residential and commercial, along Epping Road between Brentwood Road and the Exit 9 interchange. Literally hundreds of new residential dwellings are being added, as well as dozens of new commercial spaces. A net result will be a significant increase in vehicular traffic and a significant increase in demand for alternative transportation and the travel lane equity required. VHB Consulting provided the town an Epping Road corridor study in March of 2021. Absent from every proposed option for the corridor were any bike lanes, while some of the proposals featured 5 and 6 lanes for cars. No bikes. Federal, state, and local planning departments are very much up to speed on complete streets development, which you'll hear a little bit more about later tonight. And respectfully, I know the item later tonight on the agenda is about future study and not a current situation, so hopefully you'll forgive my speaking.
You're
now.
very fine. Thanks.
I'm not sure how projects get to this stage without considering all citizens. I don't know if the exclusion was an oversight or a choice, but no matter, we feel we need to address this. It's tragic to think that we could lock out many citizens in our town from in our town planning and inevitable access. To put things in perspective, according to the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration, in 2022, there were 7,522 pedestrian deaths and 1,105 bicycle deaths, along with 324 other non-motorists killed in crashes with motor vehicles. Together, these road users account for a growing share of U.S. traffic fatalities. In 2013, pedestrians and cyclists represented just 17%, which is still a significant number. In 10 years, that grew to 21% of all fatalities. Non-motorist fatalities increased by 56% in the 10-year period between 2013 and 2022, excuse me. In 2022, 67,000 people were injured while walking, and 46,000 cyclists were injured while biking in motor vehicle accidents. So guess what happens when you invite more traffic to an already busy corridor? More people die. This data trend started in the 1990s and is why the US DOT, driven by pedestrian and cycling advocacy groups, did a major overhaul to the infrastructure recommendations, continuing from the early 2000s until today. It's called Complete Streets, which is a blueprint for transportation infrastructure equity and is best applied when you redo or build a new road. It's not new. All of this is well known and easily accessible. It's a little beyond comprehension why VHB never recommended bike lanes when we all know better. Any cyclist in the room will tell you Epping Road is one of the key arteries for riders to leave and return to town. And it's about to get way more dangerous. We are moments, really, from putting asphalt down and only to plan to provide a narrow shoulder for cyclists. A shoulder outside of the fog line is not a bike lane. On the final drawings, the shoulder is as narrow as 24 inches. Many handlebars for bicycles are wider than 24 inches. New Hampshire has a 3-foot to pass law to protect cyclists, but the road plan can't even accommodate that. It's also worth noting, as we move our police department from downtown to the Epping Road and Continental Drive area, we may already be limiting access with the move. If you are one of the 35% of Americans who don't or can't drive, then without appropriate access, your equity and safety are compromised. Further, some of the new housing is workforce or affordable housing, which is great. But excluding affordable transportation options such as cycling is incongruous with modern development and restrictive to any pursuit of equity for those who don't or can't drive. According to a 2024 People for Bikes survey, 62% of people would ride bikes more if bike lanes were separate from traffic. In 2015, the New York Times reported on a study by Harvard that found that access to affordable transportation such as bicycles and public transportation represented the biggest barrier to upward mobility and climbing up from the poverty line. So we're building workforce housing, but without bike infrastructure. We should not move forward with a 20-plus year project without the inclusivity of non-motorized travel lanes. It's wildly irresponsible. We're moving forward with so much development and leaving so many behind. We've pitched this postcard-perfect town to future businesses and residents, but are only looking after drivers, at least from what I can see on the drawings. I think we can do better. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Could you forward that to me?
With pleasure.
Great. There's a lot in there. So I'd like to, if you forward it to me, let me go through it. I don't know how much of it we'll get to tonight with the with our presentation. However, once I can sift through that a little bit more carefully in writing, we could you and I will have a discussion and probably bring it back to the board for a future discussion. But first step, if you could send that to me, it'd be great.
With pleasure.
All right.
Great, thanks.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Appreciate it. Any other public comment this evening? Okay. And there's no one on Zoom, so last call. We'll close the public comment. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes.
Yes, Mr. Chair, there are two areas that I need to go back and watch in the meeting minutes. So I'd like to table the October 15th, 2024 meeting minutes to our next meeting of November 12th, 2024.
I see no reason to object. Rest of the board, okay? I have no problem with that. Entertain a motion then to table the Exeter Select Board regular meeting minutes of October 15th, 2024.
So moved. I'll second then.
Motion by Selectman Chartrand.
Courteous.
And the second from Selectwoman Belanger. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Okay, we have.
Thank you.
Thank you. Few appointments to take up this evening. First of which is on the Arts and Culture Commission. They had a reorg based on an earlier resignation that the board considered and accepted. So I believe Scott Ruffner is now chairing the Arts and Culture Commission
Yeah.
with Tony Calandrello as vice chair.
Yeah.
And with the opening created, the Arts and Culture Commission is recommending that the Select Board appoint the alternate Bruce Jones to a regular voting member. And is there a term on that, Mr. Dean?
I am getting that right
Yes,
now. I'll be
because I
right with
forgot.
you.
See? Oh, wait a minute. It's in this packet, so Russ will probably get it before I can.
There's a term for 2025, Mr. Chair, and a term for 2026.
Why don't we shoot for 2026?
I was going to suggest that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Jones has been an alternate since day one on the committee,
Yeah.
so I think he'll be happy to
So it'd be April.
serve for the next few years.
April 2026.
I would entertain a motion then to appoint Bruce Jones as a regular voting member of the Arts and Culture Commission with a term to expire April 2026.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Selectwoman Belanger, seconded by Selectwoman Gilman. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion
Thank you,
carries
Mr.
4-0.
Jones, for your enthusiasm
Absolutely.
to move up to a full voting member.
All right, we'll take up the tax exemption and credit advisory committee in a moment. The town moderator and Kate Miller and our town clerk, Andy Kohler, have asked that the board appoint a very robust list of folks who have offered to serve as inspectors of elections for the 2024 general state election being held next Tuesday. So, Mr. Dean, I think I can do this in one motion.
Yes, one motion.
Okay. Then with that, and I'm going to hopefully pronounce everybody's name correctly, I would entertain, yeah. Oh, that's a good question.
Person with the last name of Byam, is it Martha Byam?
I don't know.
Does anybody
I'm
know
pretty sure it is.
that individual? If that's a typo, if that's their name?
You can do B, Mayim.
We could do a and/or.
Mr. Dean, do you, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Pass that down.
I meant to.
Right below Martha, good catch.
Yeah. It's good to get it right.
Is that Martha?
I'm not sure, Mr.
Yeah.
Chair, sorry.
Bear with me. I can come up with an answer.
Is the question, that's her name?
Yeah, her name. It might-
It's
it-
Martha Bynum.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our BRC chair
Martha Bynum.
is,
Jack of all trades.
I was-
I was just going to say, right?
I was assuming that
Thank
was
you.
the case.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Okay, I would entertain a motion to appoint the following volunteers to serve as inspectors of elections for the 2024 general state election being held on November 5th, 2024. Alexander Koch, Gwen English, Heidi Carrington Heath, Stephen Jones, Eric Kane, May Youngclass, Mercy Voorhees, Linda Sheltry, Diana Papageorge, Karen Moyer, Denise Leonard, Robert Pryor, Gwen Kenny, Jill Compton, Roberta Dickerson, Michael McCord, Joan Pratt, Barbara Rimkunis, Cheryl Elwell Turner, Sharon Wainwright, Randy Christian, Deborah Payson, Teresa Toomey, Fiona Shea, Karishma Manzoor, Stephanie Doris, Rachel Owens, Jeannie Wright, Deborah Twombly, Stephen Singlar, Jane Oldfield Spearman, Nikki Jackson, Martha McEntee, Martha Byam, Pat DeMartile, Michelle Chapman, Adam Chandler, Christine Spencer, Shannon Plank, Chris Baker, Peter Thompson, Judy Lamphere, Bill Wright, Bill Campbell, Brittany Angelo, Ginny Berrien, Sharon Wainwright, Marcia Lenz, Audra Rogels, and Jean
Chevalier.
Chevalier. Thank you. I only practiced that.
So moved.
So, motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion by Selectwoman Belanger, seconded by Selectman Chartran. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I will abstain since I'm on the ballot.
That's right. Motion carries 3-0 with one abstention, and that is Selectwoman Gilman. Thank you.
Thank you for that wonderful list and for everyone volunteering.
Absolutely.
To work our polls.
And with that being said, the town moderator asked me to remind those select board members that may not be able to work or put in a full day to get substitutes to serve pro temp. And I know you've already done that list, and I know we'll probably all be there, give or take a break, so we'll look forward
I'll
to
be there.
seeing everybody. Okay. Over the course of the last couple of months, we've interviewed several individuals for the new Tax Exemption and Credit Advisory Committee that the Select Board implemented, working with Town Manager Dean. We had 6 individuals who interviewed with us over the last few weeks. All of their statement of interest are included in our packet to refresh our memories of our interviews. Mr. Dean, I believe we're looking to appoint 4 voting members
That is how it's been constituted, yes.
with a Select Board rep to also be assigned as a non-voting member, correct?
Correct.
And you, Mr. Dean, are going to serve as staff, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Before we move to appoint 4 individuals, I would like to make the suggestion to the board that we hold off on appointing the Select Board rep until Selectwoman Cowan's here, because I believe she'd shown some interest in the past, and I'd like to include her in that discussion.
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Chair, one correction, the Select Board member is a voting member.
Thank you. So it's 4 members and 1 Select Board voting member.
Correct.
5 votes. Okay. Is everybody okay with holding off till November 12th to include Selectwoman Cowan on that? But we can go ahead and appoint 4 individuals. I would look for any nominations.
I'll nominate Christine Suter.
Second.
There's no.
Oh, you
There's a
want me to
motion
do-
and a second. Are there any terms, Mr. Dean?
There's one for 2025, one for 2026, and 2 for 2027.
Okay, so I
Please.
change mine on Christine Suter to the 2027.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to nominate Christine Suter. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion
Mr.
carries
Chair,
4-0.
could you, I just ask Mr. Dean to repeat those term years again?
Yes, one for 2025.
Yep.
One for 2026.
Yeah.
And 2 for
Thank
2027.
you. Okay, I'm good now.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion that we appoint Mark Furlong to a term ending in 2027.
Second.
It's a motion by Selectman Chartrand, seconded by Selectwoman Belanger. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We appoint Mark Furlong to a term to expire in April 2027.
Mr. Chair, I move for Esther Gentile, I believe I'm saying her last name right, for a term of 2026.
Second.
It's a motion by Selectwoman Belanger, seconded by Selectwoman Gilman. Any discussion?
Yeah, I was less than impressed with her. I think we have some better candidates, but, so I'll be voting no.
How many have we appointed? 3?
Yes. Do you want to withdraw your second?
I do.
Okay. If I'm
So
not seconding it, then I'll just,
I'll second it for discussion, since we had discussion. But I agree with Mr. Chartrand that I thought,
and I
If there was some-
didn't, I thought she was open-minded and new to a committee, and I was excited to have her, so if we don't nominate her and she's listening, I hope she considers another board or committee. So I will withdraw my motion, and I will move for Jerry Hamel for a term of 2026. Unless someone objects.
I'll second that.
it's a motion to appoint Jerry Hamel by Selectwoman Belanger, seconded by Selectman Chartrand. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye, okay. Opposed? Motion carries 4-0.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to nominate Jean Wright for a term ending in 2026.
Second.
You've done 2 2027s and
2025.
This is the second
2026.
2026.
This is a 2025.
Oh, 2025. Got it. I'll amend my motion, Jean Wright for a term ending in 2025.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Thank you. So, Mr. Dean, Christine Suter for a term to expire April 2027.
Mark Furlong for a term to expire 2027.
Jerry
Hamill, 2026.
Yep.
Jeannie Wright, 2025.
I'd like to thank all the volunteers that came in to interview for this committee. And while I thought that, I think the 4 people that we've appointed present a diverse group of folks, I thought that the other 2, also offered something. I thought there was some. I think with Ms. Gentile and Mr. Meyer, there was some duplicate
Some overlap.
overlap. Thank you, particularly with Ms. Gentile, and I just found I thought it was just more focused on that one cohort. I thought she was wonderful, and I hope that she'd be willing
I
to.
think a few of them had that, but then, anyway, I'm not going to belabor it.
If I could affirm, the reason for my choices were, while all 6 interviewed wonderfully and are, outstanding examples of citizen volunteers, I thought the 2 that we have not nominated to this panel had narrower scopes to their interest, and I wanted people who wanted to deal with all the issues that we're hoping this tax exemption and credit advisory committee would take up. So it's not really a swing at anyone's ability. It's just the narrowness of the focus, I found, left them in a second rank behind the 4 that we appointed, if that makes sense.
Yes.
I think that does make sense, and I would further offer that, we would hope that they would still participate if they felt compelled in the meetings. Obviously, if one of the 4 that we appointed has a conflict and no longer able to serve on the committee, I think we'd like to reserve the right to contact.
We have plenty of other vacancies, so I
Yeah.
hope that they consider some of the other openings.
All right. With that, there are no resignations this evening to consider. I think we got all the appointments. So we'll jump right into our discussion items, quite a few of them this evening. So I'd like to invite our Water and Sewer Superintendent, Steve Dalton, to the microphone. Good evening, sir. It's nice to see you. It's been a little while.
Yeah, it sure has. Good evening, Select Board members. Just wanted to come in and give you guys an update. We received a grant for $50,000 to do a lead service line inventory that's mandated by New Hampshire DES and EPA. As you are aware, the water distribution system and the water system for Exeter originated in 1886, and Exeter bought it in 1950. So there were some discrepancies in record keeping. So the lead service line inventory had to be submitted to DES by October 16th, so last week. We had 1,492 water services that were of unknown material. So we have to mail out letters to 1,492 people stating that we do not know what their water services are made of with the material, if they're lead or copper or HDPE. And there are also 5 letters that will be going out that will be telling people they have what's known as galvanized requiring a replacement, which is galvanized pipe, but it's unknown if there was a lead gooseneck at the water main where it was connected. So for all those, we're going to have to figure out what those are sooner than later. And then we're going to be working towards finding out what all the unknowns are over the next 10 years. We're hoping to be able to take a big chunk of that out sooner than that. We have tie cards that have material on them, but unfortunately, the records from 1886 don't have street addresses on them. They have service numbers, and we do not have a master list to correlate the service numbers to the street address.
Which have all changed anyway.
Right, yeah, they are. Yeah, there's probably not much that's going to be the same from 1886. So I just wanted to give an update on that project. Still be moving forward, but we have to mail those letters out by November 16th. Yeah.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah, so they'll be out.
Okay.
The states offered, and the master list of all the records for the 3,280 services is available in either electronic format or printed format by going to the Public Works Department or emailing any of us there. We can generate and send that list off to whoever may be requesting it.
It's also included in our packet, just.
Yes, it is. It is included in the
So
packet.
if
I
you want to
didn't.
access the Select Board's packet for this evening,
Correct.
for your address, you can see
Correct.
your status.
Yep. Yep, that's correct. That's pretty much the update, unless there's any other questions.
No questions, but I want to, first of all, thank you for the update
Yeah.
and wish you luck with a month.
Thank you.
Not even a month's worth of work, but congratulations on securing that grant.
Yes,
And
thank you.
appreciate all the hard work.
I appreciate it.
You and the department have been doing.
I do have a question. So you're going to send these letters out?
Yes.
You will receive some concern?
Yes.
From many?
Correct.
How will you prioritize sort of identifying the unknowns?
So the unknowns are going to be prioritized. We're going to be going through the oldest areas of town that would have like cast iron water mains. It would be the general locations of where there would potentially be galvanized or lead services. The good news is we never have found any lead services, complete lead, from the main all the way into the house.
So that's the town's portion of things?
Yes, that's, well.
Or is it the owner's portion as well?
Both sections. Neither section we have found any lead. Complete lead services, which is good news. But the state is offering, the state has contracted 3 separate labs that free of charge residents that are concerned can coordinate with us, with the water department, and we can drop off a bottle. It's a 1-liter bottle. Comes with instructions. You have to run your water, your tap water, for a minute before you collect the sample, but it has all the full instructions. We'll pick it up and send it off to the lab free of charge. It doesn't cost the town any money, just a matter of coordination and picking up and delivering samples.
So there's a way to expedite your testing of your water
Yes,
to see if there's any traces of.
correct. And the pH is adjusted of the water to be non-corrosive. And it's been like this way for a long time. We are required to test for lead and copper annually anyway. And we do test, areas of town that would have the cast iron
Yeah.
pipe and the galvanized services and such.
So I'm going to make a statement.
Yes.
And I'm going to ask you to affirm it.
Yes.
If it's true.
Okay,
To our knowledge, we have not found any lead service,
that is correct.
but we're required to do this.
Yes,
So the need for public to be overly concerned is probably minimal.
I would think
But we have to go through this exercise because it's a federal mandate,
that is correct.
and they're helping to fund this.
Correct.
Thank you for affirming my statement.
You're welcome.
It's just good for folks to know what kind of, because they're going to get this letter.
Right, I understand. That's part of the reason why I'm here, as well as the obvious, update, the necessary update, but hopefully to try to minimize. We're going to be posting some stuff online as well to try to mitigate some of the questions, frequently, things that we think will be frequently asked questions.
And maybe push that out through our
Yeah.
Communication folks.
Correct.
Over
Yeah.
in the town hall.
Yes.
They're good at this.
Yes, they are.
Excellent. That's good. That's part of the plan.
Yes.
Sorry for all the
No.
comment and questions. but
Absolutely.
Did you find your address on here?
I did. I'm
As did
unknown.
I.
Just, I'm in there with everyone else.
You made me feel better, so thank you.
We're both of our homes are mid to late 20th century vintage, so
Yeah.
I assume we're okay, but until we know.
That's right. All right.
Thank you, Steve.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Have a good night. Okay, our next discussion item is ongoing discussion on multi-unit water rates. With us, we have our Public Works Director, Steve Cronin. We also have the Chair of our Water and Sewer Committee, Bob Kelly, present, so invite you gentlemen up.
So how do we start?
Mr. Cronin?
Sure. So this is an ongoing discussion that we've been working on with primarily Mr. Gruder from Sterling Hill. When the rates were last updated back in 2023, I believe, there was some concern on his behalf regarding the equity of charges to multi-unit customers. We went back, looked at the rate study. We reached out to Underwood, asked them to conduct some follow-up work specific to multi-unit customers. We have 430 multi-unit customers in the system. They went back and did a cost of service analysis on all 430, as well as looked at Sterling Hill's case specifically. What they concluded essentially is that they felt that they would be being charged fairly and proportionally for their usage. So I think more or less what we have is a disagreement in principle on how we assess those charges. From their standpoint, we're charging, we're recapturing a portion of our charges through a fixed meter fee, which is assessed based on meter size. Where that comes into play with multi-unit customers is they tend to have several customers on a larger meter. So that meter charge gets spread out over many customers, whereas a residential customer, they get a single customer charge for a smaller meter. What happens is their consumption charges tend to fall more into the earlier the first block that we have for rates, whereas with multi-unit customers, their consumption is spread out over all three blocks. So they incur a good portion of almost all the consumption in the first block, and then they get into our second and third block. So I won't necessarily speak for Mr. Gruder. I think he can probably argue his case, but his feeling is that we should be maybe assessing charges more on a per unit base as opposed to treating the entire building as a single customer.
Okay. Did you have anything to add, Mr. Kelly?
I actually do. I'll try to be brief. I guess my role in this is to provide some historical perspective. The genesis of the 2023 rate study actually goes back to 2015. Russ and I and Steve's predecessor worked very closely with the consultant, and we came up with what is sort of the new model that we are now working with with all of our rates. And one of the things that came out of the study in 2015 is that 83% of the users or of the connections in town are residential connections, whether they're single-family, multifamily, or mobile homes. So if we were truly equitable, we would be way overcharging residential users, and that was considered by Mr. Dean and myself specifically, but certainly the consultants, that this was untenable. We couldn't do this. So basically what we came up with was about a 50-50 split, with residential users paying about 50% of the water and hence the sewer budget, and then commercial and industrial typically would pay the rest, or let's say larger meter sizes. Mm-hmm. And that seems to have fallen into those numbers seem to make sense. To balance that, we sort of skewed that meter charge that Steve referred to. There's a 5/8 or a 3/4 meter, and I think the current charge is around $42 or $43, I think, roughly per connection per quarter. And it goes up by meter size. But the larger meter sizes it's not a straight line increase. So the people who are using, have larger connections like Sterling Hill are actually paying less on let's say a per unit basis for that connection. And that is what sort of goes into making the rate. So you have what they use, but then you also have this meter size. And as Steve mentioned, Steve actually did a fairly detailed calculation, and we actually concluded that Sterling Hill is actually paying less than what a typical residential connection would pay, because they're only paying 1 meter charge for a 32-unit building. So that gets divided out to, basically less than $1 per user. Whereas every other, all of us who live in single-family homes pay that 40 some odd dollars on that basis. So again, the model, it's not an exact science to come up with rates. You try to come up with what's fair to your primary constituents, that being the residents. I said it's 83%, and with the curve in 2015, it's actually now 85%. So we're trying to balance that, equity with the per unit, per meter charge, so that there's some sort of balance, but it's an inexact science. But as Steve's calculation showed, Sterling Hill is actually paying less than what a similar single-family home would pay because of the skewing of that meter charge. So I just wanted to provide that as some historical background.
Thank you, it's valuable. Mr. Gruder, did you want to step up to the mic?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, guys, for your work. We're down to the meter. The meter charge, no matter whether it be a 1/2 inch or a 2-inch or a 4-inch, is not a money maker for the town. The cost of the meter covers billing and administrative costs. So there's no more money to be made by the town. We just have to pay more to put meters in if we wanted to go that route. But, and that's been my argument all along, and neither of the studies really, I feel, address that part of it. We use, and I think this came out, Steve brought it up we had a meeting with Underwood back in August, and we're using 63 gallons a day average and 128 units. In the second half of Sterling Hill has 120 units, and they're about the same, a little higher, because we have worked real hard cutting our water usage because, rates go up and we're affected by it. But we don't, putting in 128 meters wouldn't do anything for anyone. You guys don't make any more money on it.
It would give you a higher rate, according to the analysis.
No, it wouldn't give me a higher rate. It would give us, we'd all be in the first tier, but the cost of the meter would offset anything we saved.
If I'm understanding what the analysis you've done here, if they switched to single meters, they would actually pay more?
They would
based on that
they would pay a
analysis.
per unit meter charge, but their consumption would be charged differently. But at the end of the day, what the analysis shows you is that their bill would essentially be the same.
Right.
So they'd still have a wonderful rate.
Yes, where they get the benefit is that they are conserving water. So what the analysis also shows you, that when you compare a single-family residential property at 111 gallons per day to a single unit at Sterling Hill at 111 gallons per day, it comes out to be the same amount of money. When they're in fact using 61 gallons per day, their charge is significantly less, and it's reflected in the fact that they're getting a lower per unit fixed fee, but a higher consumption charge. But, the bottom line is they're getting charged less.
So they do have the option to put in meters for each unit.
They could, but at this point, obviously, it's cost prohibitive.
Yeah,
So the decision.
It would make sense.
Yeah, the decision was made when the buildings were built to have that trade-off essentially of, we'll save on the installation charges, put in a single meter,
Right.
but we're gonna end up paying a little bit more in consumption. Over the long term, it benefits them significantly because they save a lot more money.
As your analysis shows, over a 10-year period, they save over $30,000.
Correct.
I haven't had the haven't had the time to study. I've got it.
You got it,
In the
okay.
last 3 minutes, I haven't studied it.
Okay, well, I just took a quick glance.
but I'm
I always
saying-
go to the bottom line, John.
Okay.
$30,000 over 10 years.
Well,
pretty good.
yeah, but I haven't looked at it long enough to dispute it. But the fact is, we're going to use the same amount of water, and we're going to pay more. You know, if you don't understand how it works, a condo fee includes water and sewer. Most communities, if they had individual bills, maybe we would say, okay, you're on your own on that, and then someone who went to Florida could shut their water off for the winter, I guess. But it's the cost of the meter. So now, instead of having one meter, I have 128 plus the clubhouse, so 129 individual meters that no one's making money on except the guy who sells us the meters. There's no more money for the town because that only covers the billing, the cost of the meter.
And you would lose your $30,000 savings over the next 10
We
years.
would lose 30,000, but we'd be paying more with the meters.
Yeah.
Like I said, I haven't had a chance to look at this. I've seen it now 4 minutes. But
I'm somewhat skeptical of your arguments, but you know that.
Well,
So-
it started 2.5 years ago. I've been talking to you about this.
But I did a quick back of the napkin thing the last time you were here, and it basically got to this. What our Public Works Director just said. There's actually a break for you by configuring it the way you're currently configuring it. Now, I'll let you study it, and we'll have you back again,
And that
I'm
may
sure.
be, true. That probably is true. If we have the one meter, we pay the higher, we pay first tier, get our 20,000 gallons, and another 70,000 in the second tier, and then the third. But it is, it's kind of a catch-22, I get it, but it's 128 individuals and one meter.
Who would
But
like
it
that?
doesn't make sense to put in another meter for every single unit, just logistically be a
I agree
pain.
with that. I agree with
And
that.
then, I don't know how, you just mentioned something about 400 multifamily hookups,
It's 430 multi-unit customers.
customers.
Yeah, so
But
that doesn't account for how many
units
units.
does that cover?
So we don't, I don't know exactly offhand. We would have to go through an audit all 430 accounts, because multi-unit account could be a duplex essentially, where you
Right.
have one
It could be
meter
two,
for
it
two
could be four.
residential units.
And there's apartment buildings that probably have more than we have.
Again, essentially, it comes back to cost recovery. So the way we've structured the rate is we have a certain amount of fixed costs recovered through customer service charges, and then the remainder is covered through consumption. If we were to eliminate the customer service charge, we would put the entirety of the charges into rates, and then we would have to essentially restructure those rates to make sure that everyone, is being charged proportionally and for the level of service that they're receiving. So it's,
And with 3,800 users, the cost of meters and then the cost of the billing and the admin, the additional rate bump would be significant. I mean, it'd be hundreds of thousands of dollars. That then the other, 99% of the users in town who have a perfectly fine situation would have to bear that. Again, it's sort of unfortunate that the developer 20 years ago did one master meter, but,
Well,
you
but
know,
20
ironically.
years ago, there was only, that we didn't have tiered rates, did we? It was
Absolutely.
just one rate.
No, we had
I
tiered
read,
rates.
I read
We've had
that
tiered
it
rates
started in
since the 90s.
2006.
I think since the 90s, we had some level
I
of
read
tiered
2006 somewhere.
meter-related rates.
The understatement of the night in this meeting, I predict, will be the impact would be significant to 99.9% of the users on the system if we were to change this.
It would, because there's over 2,500 single-family users, and there's 260 mobile home users, which let's assume that that's effectively a single-family home. So now you have over 2,800 out of the 3,800 are effectively single-family users. So it's 7 times the number of the multi-unit. As Steve mentioned, the multi-unit aren't necessarily hundreds of unit facilities. It could be duplexes. So again, it's not an exact science. So what we've tried to do is, take this curve from 2015, massage it so that it's as equitable as we can get it to the residents, while simultaneously not screwing the commercial and industrial segment. It's a moving target, and I think we've done a pretty good job over the 40 years that I've been involved in this.
So do you consider us commercial?
No, you're residential,
large
but
user.
because you have one meter, again, you're being charged for the meter, not your use type.
Yeah, we're being charged for the meter because of the size of the pipe
Exactly.
and everything else. I get that.
I mean, it comes down really to how we've chosen to slice the pie. At the end of the day, our revenue requirements are what they are. We've tried to structure the rate in a way that, reflects capturing certain administrative costs in one bucket and then consumption in another. So this is the way that we felt did it most equitably when we went back and looked at it, both from a cost of service perspective and how a multi-unit residential customer measures up against a single-family residential customer. It appears to be fair and equitable.
While maintaining the integrity of the entire system.
Correct.
So that we can live in civilization.
Yes.
Well, and people come every year and say, we should have one rate. Or we should, have one, not have the administrative charge. Basically, just have one rate for anybody who connects up. We could do that. And Russ and I looked at that. And we looked at it in 2015, and we looked at it 2 years ago. And our rates would go up by 30%. Just on that administrative change, never mind the Clean Water Act and all the other stuff that we have to deal with on an annual basis. So it would be a pretty dramatic increase
And
if we
even
did
though
something like that.
the majority of the towns in the state have one rate.
The majority of the towns are structured a little bit differently than we are. They either have a large commercial, either it's all residential, or they have a large commercial and/or industrial component, which we don't. You look at Portsmouth, you even look at Newmarket. Newmarket has a more traditional stratification than we do. We have 85% of our connections are residential, and we have a very small commercial industrial segment. And a lot of those commercial connections effectively are
small.
residential
Yeah.
from a charging standpoint. So we have a very large pool of people, paying most of the freight, and if we changed it, everybody's rates would go up, just because of the way the town is structured.
I don't believe everyone's rates will go up.
Well, I think they'd all go up dramatically.
I don't think mine do. Or the other 420.
Well, again, you guys have done a great job with conservation.
We have.
A standard, you're probaby 60% of what a standard, which is awesome. It is laudable.
It's an active adult community. There's no teenagers in those showers
think it's
for
great.
half an hour. So.
But what it shows is that
But
a tiered structure works. A tiered structure works because they're using less water and, in fact, having a lower bill.
But-
So it promotes conservation, it distributes the costs over a larger pool of people, so it's working.
But no matter what we do, we'll never get out of the highest tier unless we all stop flushing or something. There's no, we're incentivized, obviously, because we're in the third tier, but it's still not, in my mind, fair that we're actually subsidizing some of those single-family homes. All of them, probably.
Yeah, I don't think that's true, because you don't have that 128 charges for individual meters. So you're actually,
Again, the individual meters, according to all the information I've read, on profit generators, that covers
Well,
the expense and the expense of the
to the
building
point
and
of-
None of it
collection.
is really profit generating, though. The
Right.
point is to cover our costs. So it lays out our operational costs as well as our reinvestment in the system. So we're not generating any profit. It's cost of service.
and to your point about subsidizing, there's a subsidy baked into the rates. As I mentioned, 85% of the users are residential, and yet we've basically split it we've set the tier one structure down to about 50% of what the total water usage is. So, by definition, we're subsidized, the higher people, the higher use people are subsidizing the residential.
Yes,
because
I
the
know.
residents are our main constituents. So we're trying to help them out.
So we're also
Yeah,
subsidizing.
you are, absolutely. But there's no way around that. If you weren't doing that, then everybody's rates would be significantly higher. And we don't feel that that's fair.
To the single-family homeowners.
Of which, that accounts for 66% of the users.
It should be fair for everyone, though, don't you think?
It is fair for everybody. It's not an exact science. It's as fair as it can be without adversely impacting one constituent or another. That's the way we put
Well,
it
it's
together.
already adversely impacted us. I'd just like to try to reverse it and give someone else a chance.
Well, we'll, next year, when we do our annual rate study review, we'll do a calculation for what the rates would be if we had one rate for everyone in town, and we'll present that to the board, and we'll see if there's a feeling that one constituency is being adversely affected in town.
This makes me think of the Clarence the Angel in It's a Wonderful Life. He says to George Bailey, George, you really had a wonderful life. And I want to say to you, John, you and your folks at Sterling Hill really have a wonderful rate. And you should appreciate that. I understand that there's a piece of this that doesn't seem fair to you, but you have a wonderful rate. And you have access to water and sewer,
Well, yeah,
which is a miracle of civilization.
It is.
So I'm a little frustrated.
It
at
is,
the
but I'm
moment.
not like we're the only
You
ones
want it to
having
be
that miracle.
You want it to be perfect, and that's not how a system
I want
like
it to
this
be
works,
I want
especially
it
a
to be
system
fairer.
with this kind of scale.
I want it to be fairer.
It is fair. You have access to water and sewer, and that's
As
a good
does,
thing.
as does everyone else on the water system at a different price.
I'll stop right.
You indicated that you met with Mr. Gruder in August. Is there anything new on here that you could highlight quickly, if there's anything new? Given that he,
No, I
Five
think
minutes
we had presented this to him at the time. We had discussed it. We tried to show essentially, three different scenarios where, we compared them to a single-family residential property, how they would be paying if they were a single-family residential property using the same amount of water, and then how what their bill would be if they were using the same amount of water in that context. In each scenario, they were, less.
okay. Any questions or comments on down here?
No.
It's to us, it's a disagreement in perspective on, how we've chosen to assess those charges, but we feel that it's fair and equitable.
Okay. So from a public works standpoint, water sewer standpoint, your recommendation is status quo?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And I guess, to pile on, as chair of the Water and Sewer Subcommittee of the Budget Committee that develops the budget that the rates cover, we would absolutely advocate for the status quo, because the system is working about as well as it can with 20-some-odd years of history behind it.
Thank you. Board satisfied with the recommendation?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And we're looking at the rates next year again? The year after?
Probably.
Yes.
Okay. Give you the last word?
Well, I didn't realize, is this the exact same
Yes.
paper we looked at?
Yep.
Okay, I didn't know at the time, and I haven't looked through it again, so. I disagree with Councilman Chartrand about the perfect, we actually have to provide, we have booster pumps to push our water. I don't think you'd have one of those in your house, do you? Yeah, so
I'm not
we-
familiar with what you're talking about.
Yeah, we have to get enough pressure. we have to, and I don't know why there's not enough pressure, except that we're uphill. Anyone know?
We can agree to disagree, John.
Yeah, we can.
You are a great servant to this town, and I appreciate all you do. And I'm just very adamant about this.
Yeah, I realize.
But I see that you have a different perspective,
Yeah.
and I honor that. I feel the way I feel.
All right.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Gruder. Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Mr. Kelly and Mr. Cronin? Next on the agenda, we have our town engineer, Mr. Paul Vlasic, the presentation on the pavement management plan.
Or not.
Steve Cronin night.
Russ, do we need Gabe?
There it is.
Good night.
Good to see you, Steve. Take care.
Got it? Got it.
Sorry about that delay there. Paul Velocich, town engineer,
Good night, John.
Hi, John.
Sorry, Paul.
and I'd like to walk you through a pavement management report. This is the third one that I've given over the years, and the last one was in 2017. The presentation will start with the idea of what is pavement management, talk about our conditions that we have right now, go through the budget, and we'll come up with some recommendations at the end. So what is pavement management? In short, it's a method to maximize the value of our pavement and the life of our pavement. This is the pavement management program that we use. It's not called micro paver anymore. They got rid of that. And we're up on version 7.1 now, but I still use this old one. So one of the recommendations later is we better upgrade this thing already because it's not being supported. But when I came to the town in 2008, there was already a pavement management program. It was called Road Surface Management System, developed by UNH, and it had the lengths of the roads, the widths of them, that type of inventory. So I inherited that, this program inherited that. And this program also has a specific way of doing pavement inspections. It's an ASTM standard. If you go through it and follow the rules, you'll come up with the same answer every time on the condition of the pavement. We look at the conditions of the road and we start developing some costs. We develop some prediction curves, how long is the service life of an improvement, and then come up with a budget and a work plan. Through this discussion, I want to point out that there's two different levels of analysis. I'm talking about network level analysis. I'm at 5,000 feet looking down at our roadway system. When we get to the project level, that's when our J. Perkinsons take over and They follow the concepts, but now they get into the nitty-gritty of actually how to fix the road. So I'm up on your level. How do we give the guys in the trenches the tools to make a good system? This is a pavement management graph. On the left-hand side is condition rating. You'll see some numbers. I'll get to those shortly. And then on the bottom, you have years going out to the right. And if we took all of our roads and all of our improvements and you plotted them on one graph, that's what this is right here. And that orange line generally is the best fit curve of how our road systems are acting. The unfortunate thing about this particular slide is it has overlays grouped with reclaimed roads, newly reconstructed roads, all lumped together, though. You'll see some slides later on where it breaks that out. So the curve, when you start out, is really good condition, and then it kind of levels off for a little bit. And the idea of pavement management is let's fix our roads in this area right about here before they start drastically falling off into more and more disrepair. And the reason we want to do that is because any dollar you can spend up there at the hash marks will save you, right now, according to the figures we're using, $8.50 when it gets down into the almost failed condition. So there's lots of things you can do to the road, lots of different surface treatments. You pick the right one. You apply it according to that curve. There's some opportune times to apply that. You don't want to do it too early. You certainly don't want to do it too late. You do it on the correct roads, and then you make sure that when you do it, you also have the QA, QC part of it down too to make sure you're doing it correctly. I talked about there was some numbers there from a very good road to a failed road. And those numbers were representing pavement condition index, PCI. And you'll hear PCI referenced the rest of this presentation. And it takes the different types of distresses and the quantities and how bad they are, and it starts lowering a perfect road. And it really gets convoluted when you have multiple distresses in your road. That's why we got the computer program that is doing that. And we used to, up until 2022, we used to do this manually. We used to go out, break our roads up into smaller sections, do enough of those smaller sections to be representative of the entire road, do the inspections on it, put the distresses into the computer, and out comes the PCI value. What we did in 2022, we had a consulting firm, Stantec, that was doing some work in Dover that we hired, that used a van with video equipment and that sort of thing, and we had the entire town done in 3 days. It took a little while to get the pavement condition index back, and it took them a little bit to get into the program also, but it was a quick turnaround, and I think we paid about $18,000 in that, and you can just picture how much effort it is for a few people to go out and do these inspections on all of our roads. So these next couple of slides is to give you an idea of what those PCI values look like. And this is Tamarind Lane, just done, and this is a PCI of 100. Now we are at Maryland Ave, And we're looking at the road system, and we can start seeing a little bit more longitudinal cracks, some transverse cracking right about there. And we're at 86, still a very good road. But you can see it's deteriorating a little bit. Now we're at 68, still a good road. But you can see now the cracks are getting wider in the street, and there's a few more of them. We get to a PCI value of 45, and now you start seeing a little bit more of settlement, edge cracking, a little bit of alligator cracking there too. You can see that it's time to do something to this road. And then we get on to Continental Drive. This is one portion. Trying to take a picture these days without leaves all over the place or shadows was almost impossible. So I apologize for the photo, but you can see a ton of alligator cracking and also a little bit of, well, you can't see it, but there is some rutting going on there also. Now we're at PCI is 31. Now we are at School Street, one of our future street projects. At 16, you see the patch, and you can't really see the rutting too awful bad, but there's a lot of rutting, especially where that patch is. And another project of ours out on the West Side Drive area, La Pearl Ave, that one is mostly patches. Very rough road. So that gives you an idea of what some of those PCI values actually look like. So after we do all the inspections in the town, and we look at the area weighted ones instead of each segment like a small street equating to a Portsmouth Avenue, no. Area weighted, we've got a PCI value of about 58. Oh, let me go back one. You're going to start seeing this color system over and over again. It's got the dark green on top, it's good, the lighter green, all the way down to the red. We're at 67. We went, and we'll see the budget. After that presentation, we considerably raised the budget. Our PCI values increased, and then they started dropping off again. When we did the presentation in 2017, we were about the same PCI value. Now, where we're at now is over here at 58. We have generally about the same budget that we had over here. And it was the hope in 2017 that through our utility and street reconstruction projects, that would give a big boost to the paving budget and make up, maybe we're not having a full pavement budget, but it will add to it and keep it pretty level. But over the years, we're still declining now. So that was the point I wanted to make before I went on to a different slide. Here's that same color system again. We looked at PCI values with the photos, so we got a handle on what that looks like. Now, generally speaking, I'm up in the network analysis, 5,000 foot looking down. Generally speaking, we can start looking at what the repairs will be. Up in here, it's just spot repairs. Highway Department goes out and fixes some small things. Maybe even a little bit of a crack sealing effort too. Then we get into surface treatments in this area. Maybe at the 70 level, not so much, but certainly when it's getting down to the 50, yeah, that's where we want to do most of our improvements because it's going to be one of the cheapest things we can do. And then as we deteriorate even more, we start having thicker overlays. and then starts our reconstruction efforts through, first of all, reclamation and paving. And a lot of people don't know what reclamation is, but that's where the machine comes in and grinds the asphalt on the top, mixes it with the gravel base so that there's now asphalt in the gravel base, and then come in and pave again. Some of the shortfalls of all that, you grind it all up and then you put more pavement on it. Now your road is, a few more inches higher than when you started. You probably have to take some out if you had other things to, like elevations that you had to keep. And then the reconstruction efforts down below. So we've got a GIS manager now. And we can do you nice, pretty pictures and stuff, too. So I had to put one in there, but this is the PCI value of a section of our town, just so it gives a nice little visual. And she did a wonderful job. So now that we know the conditions of the roads, it's like, what about the priorities? We know we're going to have to fix roads, but priorities come into play, and we've grouped them that our high-use roads will be rated a little more on our priority scale. And then our collector roads and our industrial roads would be on the second tier. And then the residential roads would be last. And there's a little pie chart over there that shows you that we are mostly residential roads, and our number one roads are about 11 miles of it and stuff. And here's another nice little picture that, still keeping the same color codes, shows our high volume roads in the dark greens and the light greens. We got some of our collector streets in the light blue. We don't have any industrial shown, and then you can see the residential areas too. And a lot of our collector streets are residential streets too, but it's how it functions in the whole network. This is a dang good graph. This is Exeter specific, and it's about overlays. And there's, at the bottom of this slide, it talks about the high volume roads, the collectors, the residentials. We even got another one that I added in there, rural. It's its own little critter in some places. PCI values on the left-hand side and years as you go out. And in a nutshell, you can see the roads deteriorate, then they level off, and then you want to catch them before they fall off. So probably about right in this location for almost all of them, overlays do last 15 years in Exeter. So we use these service curves now to predict future conditions. These are a graph for a newer reconstructed street. There's not as many, so the graph isn't as well defined on it, but as you do more of these, you will be able to have better curves, but these are the ones we're using right now. So now that we know how roads are supposed to act, now we got to start doing the budget part of all of this. And our first presentation, 2010, 7050, 2017, same number. That's what we've been using as a basis for our, we've been keeping that budget for a while. This past year, it's up to $85 a ton. Price per ton on this side, and years go out. And it shows that, yeah, the asphalt's getting more expensive. Now, I don't have other graphs of equipment and personnel and that sort of thing. But this shows you that there's an increase in the cost of doing business. And through our analysis here of the last few years and what the current costs are, this is what we are assuming moving forward. We got the crack ceiling at $2 a foot. We've been keeping that one steady there for a while. It's still played out this past year of almost exactly $2 a linear foot of roadway, not of crack, of roadway. And our surface treatment, shim and overlay, $1.10. And you can see as you get more and more drastic in your repairs, the costs escalate accordingly. So again, this graph right here, or these two pie charts, is to bring home the idea that you want to repair your roads before they get into disrepair. And this is our different areas of where we're at in the PCI value. And if I look at our two worst, where we're reclaiming or reconstructing, where about 16% of our roads are in that orange or red category. And if we looked at the repair costs, the backlog, that's another word you might hear me say. And if we look at the backlog of what we have, and we look at reconstruct here, and we look at reclamation efforts here, that's 58% of that repair cost right there. So small percentage of the roads costing a lot. That's why we don't want them to fall into that category. So here's what we've been spending. This is what the budget has been. We did the presentation in 2010. The year right after that, we had a paving budget, $950,000, dropped a little bit, and then went to $800,000. In 2017, we had $800,000 also, and this past year we were at $700,000. So this is what we've been budgeting throughout our pavement management history. This also is another slide. This was originally done in 2010. I didn't recalculate anything this time around, but it's still this good information. Back in 2010, one of our options that we were looking at was this $820,000 expenditure. And since it was our first pavement management presentation, we wanted to bring home the idea, you don't pick your worst roads and you fix that one, then you pick the next worst road and you fix that. And we did this computer exercise, and we did that exercise using $820,000 for 5 years, and we did our worst roads first. And what we end up having at the end of that 5 years was a PCI value of 58, and our backlog. You know, right now we got about 13.6, and our backlog then in that scenario went up to $17.7 million. But if we did the pavement management philosophy way of doing it, we had a higher PCI, and we also had $5 million less of improvements to do over those 5 years too. So I hope for now you know that we don't necessarily want to look at the worst roads and do those. There'll come a time when you got to do some of those, but to concentrate on them all the time is not what we want to do. So now that we gave you some budget history, we showed you how much things cost, we showed you the condition throughout the town, Now we'll run scenarios. And we did 3 scenarios. One, we kept that same $700,000 figure. And we went out another 5 years. And so right now we're at 58 PCI. We're also at that backlog of $13.6 million. So if we were up here in this row over here, if we stay $700,000 a year for the next 5 years, we can anticipate, again, at that 5,000-foot level, a PCI of 53, a drop of about 5 more, and also a backlog being escalated up to about $22 million. We also ran now a second analysis that said if we wanted to keep the same 58 PCI for the next 5 years, how much should we be spending? And it came out to be a little bit over $1 million here. Still the same 58, backlog goes up to 19. And I want to pause with that because I forgot to tell you one of our assumptions. One of our assumptions moving forward for the next 5 years is costs escalate 3%. I don't have a crystal ball, but and so that's partially the reason that some of that backlog is growing also. And then we did one more analysis. If we wanted to go from our current 58 up to 65, we just picked that number to see what the analysis would be. $2.25 million a year gets you up to 65, reduces the backlog also. So now we're going to go for the recommendations. This is about the paver program, first of all. This is the program we're using. Every year that we do improvements, we want to make sure it's documented, put it into the program because it jumps that PCI up to 100 for that particular road and starts its traveling down along the service life curve. Those family curves are also those overlay ones and that sort of things. We can update those, but I can tell you they're not moving too awful much anymore. When we first started, there was a little bit of leeway, but they're fine. They're pretty good right now. Evaluate funding levels periodically. That's what I'm talking to you about tonight. Condition ratings. Do those inspections every so often. 3 years, 4 years, somewhere along that line. Multi-year programs, and you got to stay flexible here. And we're making all kinds of good assumptions, but if our budgets won't stay the same, or if environmental conditions change, or priorities even change of where you want to concentrate your efforts, you can have a mindset out that leads to failure because you're not following what you said you were going to 5 years ago. So I suggest that we only try to go out at least, at the most, 3 years. GIS link. This used to be a comment that was in every one of them. The program does have the ability to do that, but now with a GIS person, I'm sure they got great ideas of what to do also. So it's not a two-step process. And as I said, let's get an updated version of paver already. Pavement management, you saw it on the other slide, do the right treatment at the right time and do the right procedures for it and follow through that way. So whatever activities you're doing, make sure you do a good job of it. Pavement preservation versus that worst first scenario. That was the slide with the blue on one side, red on the other. There was a $5 million difference in that 5 years on that. If you're going to do a program, an improvement, you might as well do it right. However, there are times when the road is bad enough, but your utility project is still too far down the line. So you don't want to reconstruct that and do your utility project, 5 years from now, but you'll want to do a Band-Aid or something on your road just so that it stays together. Sometimes you need to do something like that, but once you decide what you want to do on a road that doesn't have that situation, do it correctly. And we've been doing some crack sealing, and that's been working out very good. In fact, that's probably the cheapest thing that we can do to preserve the life of a roadway network. Okay, now this is part of the nitty-gritty here is the budget. And you can see from one of those graphs that we have a reduced PCI values, and we have contributing factors for that. We have some decreased pavement budgets from when we first did the analysis. You can see the increase in asphalt costs. Same thing happens with the materials and equipment. And also, we spent a considerable amount of money, too, making sure that whatever improvements we do in the street doesn't affect the sidewalk or the curb, or if it did, we did some repairs to those localized areas in there. And over the last 5 years, there was some substantial paving money that went towards that. While the street reconstruction projects definitely help, definitely prolong, or not prolong, but helps the health of your entire system, it wasn't enough, as we were hoping in previous analysis, to keep up with the same PCI value. So we're going to come in with a slide here in a second of a road improvements for $700,000, which is in the current proposed budget now. But consider an increase in 2026. And another thing to consider also is there's some municipal parking lots that are going to need some attention pretty soon. And there's not a funding mechanism for those. It would probably come out of paving budget too. So remember that when you look at increasing the budget also. So year one, 2025, $700,000 would be these particular streets, and you probably look up there, and if you've been watching where pavers have been here lately, you'll say, didn't you just do Industrial Drive and Commerce Way? Well, we did the base paving for that. We got to come back and put the top on it, so that's going to eat that up. Then we went to 1.1 million as a suggestion for 2026. Those are the streets that are on our list. And then 1.1 million for the year after that. And you can see that now we are starting to blend in a portion of parking also, but not until the third year out. That's it.
It's excellent. Did you show this, by the way, to the Budget Recommendations Committee this year?
I showed them
Or part of it?
one piece of paper that had two slides on it.
Okay.
Married together.
This was the subcommittee.
Yeah. Just interested. Any questions or comments or?
No, thank you for pulling this together, because, as you said, what's this, your third time, and we always have struggle over our budget and what to add in there and what to try to push down the road a little bit, and this is pushing down the road. So, thank you. And the Budget Committee seemed to be really excited about what you did give them, so I'm appreciative that we got the longer version.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Selectwoman Gilman?
I don't have any comments yet.
Okay. Chakra?
Yeah, I want to zero in on the sidewalk chewing away at the paving budget. The two things are not mutually exclusive. We need to fully fund our sidewalk program as well. But I understand your point that you're making, that to maintain the integrity of our sidewalks, some of that paving money is going to the sidewalks.
Yeah, and let me elaborate on the conditions for that. So if you are, this is the fourth time you come in and do an overlay on the road over the years, your curb's going to disappear. What you can do, instead of resetting the curb, because that's not always advantageous, you can then spend money on milling the asphalt off of the street, not the reclaiming part, but milling it down to get that elevation down, so when you put the overlay on it, now you still have curb and sidewalk also. So that's where that situation comes into play, mostly, is an elevation situation.
I understood that. I just wanted to be clear that the integrity of our sidewalks is of equal importance to our roadways. It's one system, and all of the elements of the system need to work. So you weren't advocating for not doing that. You were saying that's part of what's eating up the budget.
Well, that ate up some of the budget over the last 5 years.
So you were just showing the trend,
Yeah.
not saying that we shouldn't invest in our sidewalks.
Oh, I wasn't saying that
Yeah,
at all.
I understood that.
Yeah.
Just wanted to elaborate.
I see you stepped up to the microphone, Mr. Kelly.
I want to let you guys do your thing. You have a minute?
We have all the time in the world for you, yes.
So the Public Works General Subcommittee asked Steve and Paul to give us a preview. Just the timing was such that we gave our report last week, so we wanted to have that be as complete as possible. So we saw, the what we would consider the salient parts of this, the budget-related parts, and it was very illuminating. And we, in our report, have advocated to look at a couple of different options. Probably not this year. I just don't see, with healthcare and IT costs and the other things, I just don't see us having the bandwidth to do what Paul and Steve would like us to do. But I think we've acknowledged that there's a problem, and we will be talking with the executive committee over the next year about how to maybe do a CRF to sort of front seed something and get there while still maintaining an annual budget. It's going to hurt next year. There'll be a Band-Aid ripping off, and just like the paving budget when we went, was it 2010? When we went from 500 to 900, it was difficult, but now that's the level. So it's time to acknowledge the technology and the numbers and increase it. So, and we are also going to be having a discussion on CIP night about the sidewalk program. That's one of the discussion items. Again, probably not the bandwidth to do anything this year, but want to get it out there and have people consider that. So we listened to the presentation, it was excellent, and we will do something about it.
Terrific.
Yeah, and that's part of our process, right? We listen, we do listen, and just try to find a way to fit it in and fit everything in that we need to. Timing and finances are not always on our side, so, yeah, thank you.
And I agree. This would be a tough year, but I like your idea of looking into some seed money going forward for a fund. I think that'd be valuable.
And we did that with the meter program a number of years ago, and that really helped sort of kickstart the program.
Right.
And then we have an annual, where we do a lesser amount, but at least we were able to get that initial hump taken care of, and this is a similar I think, a similar approach.
My other takeaway, which is, it's an axiom of municipal affairs. You put stuff off, it's going to cost you more later. So in the very near future, we need to embrace the information that you've given us tonight, Paul, and get to that level, because it's going to cost way more later. So.
Great.
Yeah, I'd just like to say thank you to you all. I can't even talk tonight. Thank you to you all for putting this together, because it's going to make it easy for me to explain to people when they ask, why hasn't my road been paved? and where's my sidewalk, et cetera. And this was quite clear. So I appreciate I'd even make a handout for my friends.
If it's not already, can this go on the website?
Yeah, it will go on the website. It's
Wonderful.
not there yet.
Okay.
In case there was any changes tonight of what needed to be done, it will be, though.
Terrific. Okay.
So this is just one dimension of asset planning and infrastructure replacement. So, we develop these plans, but we also look at our entire capital improvement program and where roads may fall in terms of other infrastructure replacement projects, maybe intersection reconfiguration projects, and adjust the schedule as needed. So this is a very good starting point for us when looking at individual roads, but there are other factors that come into it when we start to plan.
Okay, makes sense. Do you need any formal action from the board this evening?
No, sir.
No? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Bob,
Yes, thank
for
you.
weighing in. Okay, our next discussion item this evening, Mr. Cronin is going to remain at the table, and he'll be joined by our town planner, Dave Sharples. We're going to have a discussion about complete streets and a potential ARPA request. Good evening, Dave.
Yep.
Okay. Good evening. Thank you. As stated in our joint memorandum to the board, we'd like to request that the select board authorize the use of American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 funding for complete street studies, or ARPA. As you know, Complete Streets has been in the CIP for quite some time, and it's been moving, from the out years closer and closer, and it was up for funding in 2025, this upcoming budget. It wasn't in the CIP this year because the CIP changed from 25,000 to 75,000 funding limit. So, to be cognizant of, the larger projects should stay in there. But we intended to put it in the budget. I put it in the budget initially. I went to the planning board supported it, and I put it in my budget. But then when we met internally for due to budget constraints, it was removed. And part of that was monetary, part of that was bandwidth, because we got a lot of, we're doing the bike and ped master plan, where, we just came to the board last time with the parking, the downtown parking traffic pedestrian flow analysis, and there was 14 strategies, and there's all this implementation that needs to happen when you do these studies. You don't want to just do studies and then do another study. You want to implement, and actually do the recommendations. So that's where we're at with a couple of them. So, but I met with the general government subcommittee on October 7th, and two of them are right to my left here. Mr. Zigmont and Ms. Grazier, and also Amanda Kelly. And they questioned that. They were in favor of, funding it, and we're going to move forward potentially with that recommendation. That followed when we went to the budget review committee, the entire committee, on October 18th, and several members also raised the need for the study again. And so last week, we met with Select Board Chair, myself, the Assistant Town Manager, Melissa Roy, Finance Director Corey Stevens, and Town Manager Rustine. And we talked about, the Complete Streets study, and we collectively agreed to request American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA funding, to complete the study. The funds are only available until the end of this year and need to be obligated by December 31st, 2024. And while we still have time to meet this deadline, I think the request needs to be timely because there are some procedures we have to follow with our purchasing policy and so forth. So we'd like enough time to, get someone on board, get a scope and a project done and a contract and obligated by the end of December, which is only, 9 or so weeks away. Well, I did attach the CIP for Complete Streets, and just so people understand, Complete Streets is a process and approach to design. It's not a design itself. You don't look at Complete Streets. So Complete Streets has to have this sidewalk on both sides, this size, bike lane. It isn't that. It informs a project because you have a lot of factors that go into each individual design, like the right-of-way width. Where do you have buildings, on either side? If you have some set parameters and so forth that you have to deal with. What's the situation? What's the location? Is it kind of the paving? It talks about collectors and main roads. They all have different characteristics and maybe different needs in some cases. But Complete Streets does mean the same thing in general. It's providing transportation corridors that are, provide safe travel for pedestrians, bicyclists, transit riders, and vehicles. Like, takes kind of all the 4 transportation modes and gives them kind of equal priority in billing and kind of looks at it and figure it out. But I wouldn't say that a Complete Street study will say, you need to do, do this on, this cross-section of a road, on every, this design on a road. It all depends on the individual factors. But we're looking forward to that. Another deliverable of the Complete Street study would be kind of also beyond looking at town and looking at right-of-way widths and looking at areas where there are opportunities and maybe there's some challenges, but also coming up with a Complete Streets policy that would be presented to the board, and then the town would, set forth the process for projects to go through, and how to, and what would be looked at and what the approach would be. Thank you. Happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Cronin, anything to add?
No, to Dave's point, we have variable width right-of-ways in town. There's no one-size-fits-all approach to incorporating Complete Streets in a project. So, our feeling is that a study will help, look at existing sidewalk networks, opportunities where we'll get the best bang for our buck, and help us to inform, basically decision-making when we start to move forward with projects. I think at a board level, you'll be able to give us some guidance and direction on, what might be a preferred alternative moving forward, and then we can go out and try to design a project based on that, come back to you with some recommendations, what we see as constraints, and what may be the best avenue forward.
Okay. So if I could jump in real quick, I know this. First of all, I think it's still remarkable. You gave an update, Mr. Sharples, a couple of months ago about the master plan and the fact that, with the exception of Complete Streets, we've either started working or, in some cases, accomplished everything there. So, I think in the short span of time since the master plan was developed, that is a huge accomplishment that we can all celebrate. But this is important. I can remember talking about Complete Streets as far back as 2019.
2007.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I remember 2009 anyway. The point is, we have an opportunity, and this was something that as Mr. Sharple said, originally he was going to have it in the budget. The executive team before the BRC convened has really looked and scrubbed this budget multiple times because there's so many movable parts. So, to take it out was probably, a fiscally responsible thing to do. However, we have an opportunity to move forward with it because we do have some ARPA funding left. And I think we've all pretty much agreed when we've approved projects for ARPA funding, it's been for something like this, something that's going to bring long-term improvement to the town so that when we look ahead in 20 years, we can say, when we had that pot of money due to the pandemic, this is what we bought. And I think this really fits right in. I think, Mr. Stevens, we've got a little north of 60,000 left in ARPA funding. 74 right now, and we do need to commit all of the money. Let's commit the money by the end of the year. But as Mr. Sharple said, if we want to if we want to use ARPA money for this, we are going to have to make a decision tonight because of a purchasing policy with the town. In order to commit the money, we will have to have the RFP out and selected somebody to conduct the study. Am I correct, Mr. Sharples?
Correct.
Okay. I've also had the opportunity to speak individually with the members of the General Government Subcommittee over the last couple of weeks at their invitation, and I think this is the time to do it. My concern was, and I'll be honest, that I wanted to check with Mr. Sharples to make sure he had the bandwidth, because he's working on a lot of projects. The town's got a lot of projects going, but he indicated that, at least for the start of the study, he would have the resources to begin the work. So I think it's exciting. I'm in favor of using the ARPA money for this. I think it's a nice next great step. It's not going to solve the problem tomorrow, but I think it is a good step. I do have a question, though, for one of the two of you. Would the study address either projects that are ongoing now or projects that were finished, and how we can use future, complete street practice to massage those areas? I'm not thinking of one in particular. I know we talked about one earlier, but just as a whole in town.
Not likely projects that are already in the planning stages and we've already appropriated funding for. So we've moved those projects forward with a certain understanding. They've gone to town meeting and we've received direction from them on how they want us to proceed. So this would primarily be looking at projects moving forward.
Go ahead, Mr. Strickland.
I think this is a good idea, just to lead with that. The most comprehensive citizen input we've had in the last 10 years is during the master plan process. And to have the complete streets priority be a result of that process tells me that we need to do this. So that's my statement. My question for you, Dave, is you had a light bulb moment during the general government BRC presentation, the day long, where you said that we probably need going forward to incorporate complete street practices into our design specs. Mm-hmm. Would this ARPA funding and the study that would ensue, would that get us towards that goal?
Yes.
It would?
Yes.
Then I'm absolutely in favor of this. It's money well spent. That was the single greatest step forward, I think, for Exeter to move towards a complete streets, is you're realizing that, there's a design spec issue here that we need to fix going forward. So if that's going to be one of the results, I'm absolutely in favor of this.
Go ahead.
No, you want to go?
No, you can go. I'll say something at some point. Yeah.
Okay, he's tried twice, that's why I was trying to give him his opportunity to speak. No, I'm in favor of this. I'm glad it's a good use of ARPA. This is what we discussed with ARPA funding. So, you know what, I really don't have much else to say that hasn't already been said. So, as long as you have the time to do this and can get, if you think you can do it, then fine. We have a lot going on, so I trust your judgment on time management.
And I'm just be project manager on this.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be actually doing the study and out there.
Oh, no, I understand it,
So
but
it's not a
you're
huge.
project manager for our
Yeah. No, I get that. Yeah.
I could start listing off all of the things you're doing right now, so that people are aware the concern is real. At least for me it is. But if you think you can do it, then thank you very much.
Selectwoman Gilman?
Yes, this actually has been a program that I've looked on favorably for at least 15 years. And for various reasons, we haven't gone forward with even trying to do a study, personnel time, project weights. But this seems like a good time. We've just had our paving schedule, set up. So maybe when this is done, we might be considering something along these lines when we're redoing a street, depending on the level that we have to redo it. So I have no problem with spending the ARPA money on something that's going to bring design guidelines that will go forward in our town to make us real multimodal supportive.
Did you have anything else, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is great. I think this will be great to do. It'll formalize it. But I want to just highlight that I don't think that it hasn't been being done at some level for the since I've been here.
It's been a conscious thing to think about. It hasn't, but we haven't done a study to say these are the
Exactly.
appropriate
Yes.
places to do it.
Yeah, and it's been more informal in the design. For example, I mean, Epping Road was mentioned earlier. It was informal. I mean, that got sidewalks on both sides. We talked about that, made that a priority.
Right.
They maximized the shoulder width, but we didn't go outside the right of way because that's a whole new different. That's a different
Look at
situation when you
Kingston
start,
Road.
taking private property or, negotiating and getting easements. I mean, we have done it and forced to do it on some projects where you just can't, a grant where you want to put a sidewalk, so you have to deal with it. That gets very difficult. But at least this will lay out an approach and process that's consistent, that we follow consistently on projects, which, may not have always happened in the past. So I'm very excited to get something that formalizes it and it'll help us. So this is the process. We follow the process, and whatever the outcome is the outcome.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, today's point, projects get initiated at different levels.
Right.
You have things that go through the planning board, you have things that go through CIP, so, through this, if we get a process that kind of addresses all those at different stages, we can be better at implementing these things into project development.
Members of the public?
Thanks. I guess what I'd say is, if it brings any comfort to the board and to the planning department, there is literally a world of resource out there. There's the National Bike Walking Alliance, there's People for Bikes, and they raise millions of dollars every year that hundreds of communities can tap into those resources for planning and doing studies and things like that, much of that free of charge. So the industry is obviously incentivized to get more people walking, more people on bikes, and so they avail these, PhD level engineers to come and help you do these sort of things. So, and certainly we have great universities and things and other engineering firms around us, but it's a big movement, and there's a lot of resource available. So anything that I can do to avail resource, I gladly do. So,
Thank you. Anybody else?
No, I'm good.
I'm
Good.
good.
All right. With no other comments or questions, I'd entertain a motion to authorize the use of up to $25,000 of the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, ARPA funding, to develop a complete street study as outlined in the 2018 Town of Exeter Master Plan and the Town of Exeter 2024 to 2029 Capital Improvement Program.
So moved.
Second.
It's a motion and a second. Motion was by Selectman Belanger, second by Selectman Chartrand. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Another example of teamwork. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you both for your comments tonight. Thanks. Paul, thank you again.
Yes. Good night.
Good night. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Bob.
Yeah, Bob, thank you for sticking around. Helpful.
Our last discussion item before we jump into regular business is a discussion from our Finance Director, Corey Stevens, of the fund balance. Mr. Stevens.
He was going to yield to me, Mr. Chair, to start the conversation, if that's okay, or how would you like to do it? All right, so this is our annual conversation about fund balance and how much to apply to the tax rate. You have some sheets in your packet that have been prepared by the Finance Department, so thank you to Corey and his group for providing the information. Typically, we examine the fund balance in terms of the DRA recommended amount to leave in the fund balance anywhere between 5% and 17%. That's at the top of your sheet on the use of fund balance and setting the tax rate. So to get to that number, what we do is we look at the town appropriations, we look at the school appropriations, we look at the statewide education tax in the county. So we add up all those components and calculate that 5 to 17% based upon those numbers. So this year, we're looking at, for fund balance application to the tax rate, we developed two scenarios. We talked about the concept of applying $300,000 to lower the tax rate, or the amount of $600,000. And so we reached that by looking at the current audited unassigned fund balance, which is a final number now, and that's based on the most recent audit, which we just got back this week, this past week, and that amount is $5,249,302. So from that number, we deduct the amount that was voted from fund balance at the 2024 town meeting, $451,000. That gives us a starting number of $4.798 million to work from. So to that, we applied $300,000 in scenario A and $600,000 in scenario B, and it leaves you a range of fund balance remaining at the end of this year of 6.36% or 5.94%, depending upon how much you want to take to lower the rate. Looking at the town tax rate scenarios projected below, the town appropriations you see are $22,985,862. The general revenues that we're projecting for 2024 are $8,272,315. So using the fund balance of $300,000 results in a tax rate down below $4.27 per thousand. If you choose to use the $600,000 figure, it gets you to $418, which is a difference of 9 cents between the two proposed tax rate settings. And that gives you approximately 3 cents on the rate. It represents about $100,000. So in terms of where we land, you can see, again, going back up above, we would land back at 4.498302 or 4.198302 for the remaining fund balance, and then we would close the books at the end of this fiscal year and obviously add to that to keep in accordance with our fund balance policy.
Can you remind us what the policy is?
It's between 5 and 17% of the appropriations as we laid them out.
It's a big
at the top of the sheet.
Big wide target.
Yeah.
What have we historically been at?
We've been maintaining it pretty steady at 5%, a little bit more than that over the past several years.
Thanks.
So we do keep it on the low end of that number.
Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Dean or Mr. Stevens?
Yeah. Do you have a preference? 3 or 6?
600.
You want to do the 6?
I do, yeah. I think we would agree,
Yeah, I would concur with that as well.
given what our, given everything in its totality. I think we can afford 600. And I don't think doing anything more than that gets us, unless we're going to do like double or triple.
Yeah, that's looking at projections to the end of this year, which would seem to indicate that we will be adding a decent chunk to our fund balance going forward.
Great. Thanks for the recommendation.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments?
Nope.
Tend to agree.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I am always loath to disagree with our experts. So if they want to do 6, I want to do 6.
Okay. Would you like to make a motion?
Sure. I'd like to make a motion that we apply $600,000 from the fund balance towards reducing the tax rate to a projected 4.18%.
Second?
It's a motion by Selectman Chartrand, seconded by Selectwoman Belanger. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries
I
4-0.
said 4.18%, it should have been $4.18, sorry.
Do we need to?
Yeah, I'd like to
It's-
redo,
Okay, I'll
Please, yep.
rescind my second.
and I'll undo my, sorry, I didn't catch it.
That's okay.
That was reverberating in my head. I'll undo my motion and try one more time. See, when you let me breathe.
See, I did catch you by surprise there. That's because I just remembered something I forgot to do that I'm going to do in a minute, so go ahead.
Do you want?
No, it has nothing to do with this.
Okay. So, Mr. Chair, thank you. I'd like to make a motion that we apply $600,000 from the unassigned fund, or undesignated fund balance to reduce the town tax rate to a projected rate of $4.18.
Second.
So motion by Selectman Chartrand, seconded by Selectwoman Belanger. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Thank you.
Thanks for giving me a second swing then.
Before we get to the tax credits, and I want to apologize, we got so wrapped up with the appointments that I forgot to recognize a couple of people I'd like to recognize for their work that they've done down at Swayze Parkway over the last couple of months. First, I'd like to thank and recognize the Exeter Lions Club for staining the park benches in the parkway. I'd like to recognize and thank Robert DeMarco, who's the owner of Summerwind Property Maintenance, for fixing the granite post and donating the repair work. And last but not least, I'd like to thank the Vice Chair of the Swayze Park Trustees, Darius Thompson, who on his own volunteered his time to prune the trees along the fence behind 277 Water Street. So I apologize for not doing that at the beginning of the meeting, but we again thank these individuals for volunteering their time to make the parkway look beautiful. So thank you for that indulgence. With that, Madam Clerk, it's been a little while since we had to do this.
It's been a little while, not much on the list. Mr. Chair, I move to approve a solar exemption for MAP 108, Lot 10, in the amount of $11,000 for the tax year 2025.
Second.
It's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 4-0.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve a solar exemption for MAP 70, Lot 19, in the amount of $12,000 for the tax year 2025.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 4-0.
Mr. Chair, I move to deny a veteran's credit for MAP 55, Lot 45.
Second.
It's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 4-0.
And Mr. Chair, I move to approve a veteran's credit for MAP 35, Lot 3, Unit 4, in the amount of $500 for the tax year 2025.
Second.
It's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to remind anybody out there that's looking for one of these credits or abatements to review the documentation they're required. That is the reason that we had to deny a permit or a thing.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Dean, jumping to permits and approvals, I think we need to vote to accept the DRA summary inventory evaluation. Is that correct?
Yes, there's been an update to the MS1 form, so if you would, vote to accept that again.
Okay, if there are no questions, I would entertain a motion to accept the New Hampshire Department of Revenue Administration 2024 MS1 summary inventory evaluation.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? That was a motion by Selectwoman Belanger, seconded by Selectwoman Gilman. There's no discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Thank you. We have a special event application from Team that was submitted. And I believe it's coming to us because there's going to be alcohol beverages served. This is an annual event that Team sponsors, and I believe we have approved this in years past. Are there any questions or comments on this? Or Mr. Dean, am I missing anything on that?
No, it's an annual event.
Great. And this is the Exeter Area Scholarship Fundraiser that is sponsored by Team, Town Exeter Arts Music. If there are no questions, I'd entertain a motion to approve the requested permit of Team for the Exeter Area Scholarship Fundraiser to to be held at Exeter Town Hall on Tuesday, December 10th, 2024, from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Selectwoman Belanger, seconded by Selectwoman Gilman. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. And if the board will indulge me 1 minute, I want to make sure I'm not missing anything.
There was one before that. Okay.
No, I've got that, yeah.
Okay.
It's saving that one for last.
Okay, wow.
So regarding the one-page, in our packet regarding the election, I would like to announce that today, on October 28th, 2024, at 4:00 p.m., the warrant was posted at the Exeter Town offices and Exeter Town Clerk's office located at 10 Front Street. At 4:30 p.m. today, the warrant was posted at Talbot Gym, located at 30 Linden Street. And finally, at 4:46 p.m., the warrant was posted on the Town of Exeter website found at www.exeternh.gov. As a reminder, the general election will be held November 5th, 2024 at Talbot Gym, 30 Linden Street in Exeter from 7 a.m. to 8:00 p.m. And with that, Mr. Dean, I'll turn it over to you for the town manager's report.
Okay, I'm going to start my report tonight by talking about a grant that some really good news came through actually just this past Friday, late in the afternoon. We were alerted by the Bureau of, I want to get the acronym right, the Business and Economic Affairs Division, that we are in line to receive $560,000 for a demolition grant, it's called, for the project. The project is the Gateway Project, and the only thing that the governor and council need from the town is an acceptance through a certificate of authority. So I'm actually asking the board to vote tonight just because of the timeline. The governor and council is meeting tomorrow on this grant, and I've been told by Andrew Dorsett, who's the Housing Finance Director at the Department of Business and Economic Affairs, that they needed two things from the town to complete the transaction tomorrow. One is a certificate of insurance, which we got today from Primex, and the other is a certificate of authority regarding the project. So, again, it's great news. We're getting $10,000 per affordable unit based upon 56 units out at Gateway, and that equates to the $560,000. My understanding, and we're still digging into the details of this, is that it's unrestricted, but we want to hold on that until we talk more to the Business and Economic Affairs Division, just to make sure we're on firm footing with that. But this is something that our Economic Development Director had talked about two years ago, actually put in the application, and it's sort of an 11th hour approval. And basically, we're being told at the 11th hour that we've received the funds. So it's fantastic news, but there's a very tight turnaround for the grant.
Kudos to Mr. Wyndham. What's the name of the grant again, Mr. Dean?
It is called the demolition grant for the Gateway project.
Could you pass that to me if you need
Yeah.
a motion, rather than me try to?
Mr. Chair, could I ask
Please.
a question?
Yeah.
So the grant money that would be awarded to the town,
Yes.
and what would we use it for?
That is still to be determined. We're actually working out the particulars of that now.
Right now, there doesn't seem to be any restriction on what we can use it, but that's
Right.
too good to be true.
No, I want to understand. So it's not money that's going to the developer, it's money that's coming to the town.
Yep.
And the town could use it in some way in regards to furthering and enabling the Gateway project? Is that?
I'm not clear on what restrictions, if any, there are on this. It says on the grant itself, it says the full amount of the grant is considered earned at the time of dispersal. No further action is required from the grantee. And there is no period of performance or formal closeout process because all obligations by both the grantee and grantor are satisfied upon dispersal of award of funds. And it just names the gateway as the project.
So I should just be quiet. Yes.
There'll be more to come.
I don't normally say that, but I would say in this instance, you're probably onto something.
Be quiet and vote
I guess
yes.
at this point, you need authorization to accept this 11th hour grant of over $500,000, and then we're going to figure out what it's going to be used for later, but it's going to be used for the town of Exeter, correct?
Correct.
I'm
Okay.
not going to pass that
Can you
back.
hold just a second while I read what the website says?
Yep.
Just if I seem slightly shocked, it's because I'm slightly shocked.
Well, that's how I felt when you told me. What was the amount again, Russ?
$560,000.
Thank you.
Wow, somebody must not have taken some because this says 500,000 or up to.
And this letter came from Taylor Caswell, who's the commissioner of the BEA.
He's the guy in charge there.
Are we demolishing anything for that project? That little house, perhaps?
Well, the house was demolished.
Okay, because that's what it's for, but.
I'm ready to vote yes.
I have all the information that they've given us, and I've culled out the key, what I think are the key points.
Sure.
And I think we'll
I
have
agree with
to
the
follow up on the scope just to
Selectman
make sure.
Chardonnay.
We could have it, heck of it.
Yeah. Yeah, it is the Invest New Hampshire program through the BEA.
So is that the effort to get more affordable housing,
Correct.
which is happening there? So we're being rewarded for supporting that.
That's my understanding.
Let's vote yes.
Let's take this first step.
Yeah, I know.
So yes to
And
authority.
Mr. Dean will keep us posted as he learns more.
Right.
I would entertain a motion to accept the demolition grant for the Gateway project and enter into a grant contract with the New Hampshire Department of Business and Economic Affairs and authorize the town manager or their designee to execute any documents and perform any other acts necessary or convenient to cause the town to enter into the contract.
So moved?
Second.
There's a motion by Selectwoman Belanger, seconded by Selectman Chartrand. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Can I pass this down to you? Thank you.
Looking forward to hearing more.
Thank you, Mr. Dean.
Thank you.
And we will anxiously await more information.
Yes. So moving there, from there to a budget update, in the way that we would describe it, we have recently learned that we are actually encountering 27 pay periods in FY '25, and that is something that we had not accounted for in the budget process to date. So I want to thank Corey and his team for finding that anomaly in the process. Once every 11 years, we have a 27th pay period, and it's based upon calculating the pay weeks over a period of time. And this just happens to be, FY '25 just happens to be that year where that falls. It does not mean that our employees are working more or less. It's just a pay date issue, that the pay date falls in FY '25. So we have a 27th pay date on December 31st of FY '25 that we have to account for in our budget. So that is something that we're working on. We're working on a plan to help with that. A payroll is about $550,000 for a 2-week period. So it gives you an order of magnitude what the numbers are like. And we are also consulting with legal counsel just to get some reads on how we might implement this, if we're going to implement it one way or the other, divide by a certain pay period or do something similar to that. So we're looking at that for the budget purposes. So we'll have, and the last I had on that was that we'll just have an update for you on the 12th of November.
Okay.
So
So the last time this happened was 2013.
2014 for the 2014 budget.
Got it.
We had a 53rd payroll. back when we were paying
I
weekly.
I remember it.
Yeah.
So we're looking into working with the executive team. We're waiting for council. We've already contacted council. We're waiting to hear back. We've come up with a couple of different options, and we were hoping to have heard from council this evening, but we haven't. So the E-team will be back to the board November 12th with how we proceed.
So that is that one. We heard the lead service line report tonight. Groundwater, I wanted to give an update on groundwater. We are planning on having the beginning of the drilling this week. The well is being constructed as we speak, and we should be underway with drilling actually on the 13th of November. So the construction of the well is actually taking place, and then 2 weeks from today, we'll begin that drilling process. So that should be happening.
Can we move on from that? Were you going to move on?
I was.
Okay, just, you were going to look into how people are notified.
Right, how people were notified, because that was in correspondence in
It was-
the
yeah.
packet as to how that was. The question has gone out about whether that was certified mail or regular mail. I have not heard back
Yeah,
yet.
just because the concern is that how many people have allowed their wells to be monitored. And I believe it was somebody that was closest to the new well 2 times and no response. So we just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, that question has been asked of the consultants, but I have not heard
Okay,
yet. But
thank you.
when I do, I will,
Yes,
I will
thank you.
pass that along to the board. So next item is on Great Bridge and Water Street. There'll be some paving this week on Wednesday and Thursday. That is to do the paving work that is needed from all the pavement cuts that have been done on Water Street in front of the IOCA and take care of that space. There will be a traffic detail for those days. Businesses and sidewalks are going to remain open for those days, and Economic Development did send a blast out to the local businesses last week on that. So they should have received it if they're on the list to receive it, and others who are on that list.
That just got updated today, though, right? The date?
Yeah,
It was going to be Tuesday, now it's Wednesday.
that's correct. It was moved from Tuesday to Wednesday. And it'll be a 2-day, like I mentioned, it will be 2 days. And I was asked the question, who's paying for it? And the answer to that question is it's being paid for by the developers. So that is not town funds that are going to be expended to do that paving. It's going to be developer funds. So just to pass that along. Like to thank Parks and Rec for hosting the Halloween parade on Saturday. It was a very successful event. I was able to come downtown and see the kids walking up and down Water Street doing their trick-or-treating, so it was a great time. Everybody had a great time. And just a reminder that trick-or-treat is Halloween coming up, so we'll see everybody out there on Halloween.
4 to 7?
4 to 7,
77 degrees,
yeah. So nice and warm.
if it stays forecasted that.
Another item, we had a request from a resident to open the public restrooms at 6 a.m. instead of 7 a.m. We did that, and then they were vandalized within probably 4 days of doing that. And I just wanted to pass that along to the board because it's just one of those ironies that you just don't expect to have happen. But we're still continuing with the 6 a.m. opening because we do like to give the public access to those bathrooms, but we're also reviewing it to see if there's some other avenue we need to go. The Swayze gates, they're being fabricated by White's Welding, so that's a change. They were on back order. We talked a little bit about that. White's Welding is now fabricating those, so that's underway, and we should have an update for you shortly on that. We're continuing to have our collective bargaining meetings. We have one scheduled, potentially scheduled for the end of this week. We have one scheduled early next week, and we're going back and forth with proposals and so forth, so that process is ongoing. And we received the town audit and the financial statements of the town late last week. And I wanted to say thank you again to Corey and his team for all the work that they put in on the audit. I know with a new auditor, you know, that's a hard job to give all the information to a new audit firm and have them be able to go through it all. So we will schedule a closing conference with the board because I think you should hear from Plotzik and Sanderson. We all agree that they should come in and inform the board of our financial condition and talk about their audit process, and that'll be coming up in November, late November, I believe. I believe we're looking at the second meeting in November for that. And I believe that is all I had for you, Mr. Chair.
Great. Any questions for Mr. Dean?
Just a comment that the Parks and Rec's effort on running the downtown, Swayze Park and downtown Halloween event, they do a masterful job of that. The high school band's there.
Yeah, all dressed
so you
up.
get all kinds of ages and, mixing, and then they unleash the kids and their families on the downtown. It's one of the great days of the year in downtown Exeter. So thanks to Greg and his team. They do a great job on that.
This is a good example of user-friendly sidewalks and multimodal, et cetera, because it was also a big leaf day at the transfer station. And there was a bit of, congestion, but it was good. It was fun to see the kids.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Dean.
You're welcome.
Select Board Committee reports. We'll start with Selectwoman Belanger, please.
Okay, so on Thursday, October 17th, I was invited to, I'll try to get this right, New Hampshire Coalition for Community Media. Their annual summit was in Manchester. I was invited by Bob Glowacki, in part because I was on the general government through budget, and I'm always asking them questions before meetings and things like that, so he thought I'd be interested in going. So I did go, and thank them for inviting me. It was well worth the 3 hours of sitting through that and hearing how other communities use their media. So this particular one was community storytelling is journalism. But the journalism part wasn't becoming PBS or anything like that. It was more on focusing on highlighting students and Bob Glowacki had done that with a few of our town employees. They'd done it with a few residents. So anyway, it was a good collaborative way of how communities are sharing information, which I think is really important right now, especially with trying to figure out if a regional approach on different things can work. So I'll be excited to see how that plays out. Then general government all day the next day on the 18th. Arts and Culture Advisory Committee was Tuesday, October 22nd. I don't need to repeat about the chair, new vice chair, recording secretary. We were having a hard time getting anyone willing to volunteer. But we do have someone, one of the recording secretaries, is going to pick that up. So thank you for that. They're looking at a possible new signage next to the town hall. Dave Tovey, who is the representative from Parks and Rec, is going to look into the costs and the options along with a few of the committee members. And then they'll bring it back for the whole committee to review. And then if that's something and they bring it to the board, just a heads up, we probably have to look at the policies for who would use that, how it would be used. They did ask about the parking pedestrian study, and I'm going to say it, the green space, potential green space between the town hall and the bandstand, and I explained it. That was further down the road, but of course I'll let them know if anything that's coming up that they would want to weigh in on. There was a flyer produced, and it showed 14 places around town. It's a fall town tour, November 2nd and 3rd. Trying to vet through the committee and how to do this. So whether it's an arts committee sponsorship or something like that, that wasn't on there. There was also a QR code. No, it was a QR code. And we've learned that QR codes might not be the best source. But then later I found out from Rose Bryant that it was more of a community thing and not so much arts and committee. So we're working, bottom line is, we're going to have a work session to sit down and show how it would be an arts and culture sponsored thing. And everyone's kind of excited and trying to find ways that we can do this. Then I had the Recreation Advisory Committee meeting. I forgot what night. It was BRC night because I was here, and then downstairs. Dave Sharples is now the owner's project manager, the OPM for 10 Hampton Road. So we had a bit of an update on that. They were hoping to get that contract finalized by the end of this week, or end of last week.
I haven't
You haven't
heard
seen
yet
it,
whether it's,
okay.
I haven't seen it.
But the tentative move-in date for 10 Hampton Road right now is, and it's tentative June of 2025. Planet Playground was discussed, but they'll be coming to the select board soon with more details. So I won't get into the speculative stuff on that. Dave Tovey is presented a draft Planet Playground enhancement fundraiser trifolder. That, everyone seemed to be great with that. Powder Cake Festival, I know there's been a little bit of back and forth about this. So there were 6 vendors for the chili, 3 backed out at the last minute. So they are trying to find ways of encouraging more vendors for the chili because they really don't want to change the beer and chili vendor part of that. But anyway, that's in the works. They showed, Greg showed Gilman Park infield replacement proposal, bathhouse and concession stand work, phase 2, most to be done over the winter. Funding approval said was coming soon. I just want to remind everyone who's listening that this building is close to 50 years old. I'm going to say 48. It was my first summer job, so I don't want to go there. But because we purchased 10 Hampton Road, we were able to fix some of the major concerns we had about the children in the summertime and where they were going to go in the storms and things. So by purchasing the 10 Hampton Road, that alleviated some of those concerns, and now this 50-year-old building can still be used with improvements and things. So, they are tentatively moving their meeting to Wednesday the 20th because of Thanksgiving the following week. And then we had a Housing Advisory Committee meeting on Friday. Excuse me, we welcomed our new member, Megan Spencer. That was great. And we had a Dover developer come in and talk about New Hampshire transfer development rights. And it really isn't a fit for Exeter because we don't have a lot of property left. But it was a really good conversation about ways to work in some more attainable housing. And that's it.
Great, thank you. You got a busy
I know, sorry. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you. Selectwoman Gilman.
Yes, I did not have as busy 2 weeks. We just had the Heritage Commission meeting. Actually, I already told you about that at the last meeting. I don't have anything to report except for coming up. Friday, I'm going to the Local Energy Solutions Conference up in Concord with, I think, 2 other Energy Committee members are going just to see what else is new in local energy solutions. And then on Saturday, I'm going to make a plug for the Daughters of the American Revolution are celebrating their 250th year of organization with a ceremony, sign unveiling for the DAR at the Winter Street Cemetery, where we have 40 or more Revolutionary War soldiers buried. And then a trolley will take the participants in front of the American Independence Museum, where there'll be another sign unveiling on that property. And that starts at
1 o'clock.
1 o'clock, thank you. Starts at 1 in Winter Street Cemetery. All are welcome.
That it?
Yes.
Thank you. Selectman Chartran.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had a Sustainability Advisory Committee meeting last Monday, the 21st of October, We continued to, and we had a quorum because Denise Short has joined us, which is the first in a while. We continued to mainly talk about zeroing in on our project to reduce solid waste, landfill, blue bag, trash stream by, refining our recycling efforts through composting, through the potential purchase of the styrofoam recycling, which is being discussed as a CIP item, and then the reorg of the, potentially the reorg of the, and refinement of the transfer station, which is another CIP item. So we had a good meeting talking about that. And that's really become the dominant goal for the Sustainability Advisory Committee, reducing that solid waste, blue bag, landfill stream.
Good.
I then had a Facilities Advisory Committee meeting on the 23rd of October, last Wednesday. We heard from our town planner, Dave Sharples, on the two projects that he is overseeing, the public safety complex, the new public safety complex out on Continental Drive, and the 10 Hampton Road project. We ended that meeting by talking about scheduling a needs assessment exercise by the Facilities Advisory Committee. And I reminded them that once we do that, we will report out to the select board on what we come up with. So that will be at some point, probably in the new year, I would say, because that is happening in December. And then finally, as I always like to let you know, when I attend a train group meeting that's convened by our economic development person, Darren, and by our chief train guy, Bob Hall. I did participate in a meeting last Thursday, October 24th, and that's my report.
Great, thank you. With that, Mr. Dean and I have been talking about the train committee officially is defunct in our system, so we're gonna reach out to Bob Hall, and the select board's gonna have to vote to open it back up. Right. And we'll probably have to interview, because if you look at who's on the defunct committee, they're not, I don't think they're the same people you're meeting with. So as a formality, we'll have to open that up, so.
Yeah, the focus of the committee right now is the folks that have been involved traditionally with the train, like Bob Hall, and Don Brizzleton, Darren, obviously, and then he's recruited a lot of business people. And I'm there as a business owner. But I like to report out to you all because it has an impact on town affairs, so.
So
that might be a different thing then. I mean, if it's a function of the Economic Development Office.
No, I understand, but I think if as a select, I know he's there as a small business, but if he's there as a select board rep, we need to talk to Bob Hall and see if that is what it's going to be, or if it's going to be a town committee, just to get that clarification.
Yeah, no, I think it's a little gray, and that would be helpful. We would want Darren involved in that conversation, I would assume.
And then I had one more question down on the needs assessment. What's going to be covered in that?
We didn't really drill down into specifics, but they want the committee, Facilities Advisory Committee would like to do that exercise, and so we schedule it for December. I would love for you to be there.
Okay.
And you are the alternate, and I've been very clear that I'm always, the meeting is enriched by your presence, and there's no rule against both of us being there.
Thank you. Yeah, just give me the date.
Yes, I will. Right now.
I went to both budget meetings so far, the all-day general government for most of it, and the public works last week. There was a Pearpoint Park Committee meeting on the 17th, and they've decided to move forward with replacing the fencing to something that folks can see what's out there a little bit better, because they're also working on ways for folks to offer their suggestions in a sort of a survey, which was what the board's intentions were when we implemented the committee. So they're very exciting that they're moving forward with that. The fencing, the cost of the fencing is something that we can take in with our existing budget between Dave Sharple's planning budget and Parks and Rec budget. The fencing's very inexpensive. I think you're talking about $1 or $2 grand And Dave had that money. So that's exciting that they're going to move forward with
It is very
a
exciting.
vision.
It is indeed.
And then aside from that, tomorrow night, I've been invited to meet with the Exeter Girl Scouts to talk about democracy, voting, local elections, national elections, and I'm excited to do that because, as you know, I told you I met with the Webelow Scouts last month, and they have, I'm very happy to say, they have accepted our invitation to join us at our November 12th meeting. So when we start our meeting at 7 o'clock, Mr. Dean, if we could take 5 or 10 minutes and let the boys tell us some of their thoughts about what they do if they were on the select board. So I can guarantee if they
great.
remember what
Sounds
they told me a
fun.
month ago, it will be well worth the time.
So I'm hearing we might have some police officers to swear in. Is that tenant for that night too? Or we don't know yet?
I know we have 2 new officers that we will be swearing in, and
Just a-
when I met with the chief, he wasn't sure what the date was.
I was just thinking,
Yeah.
what a
Zoom.
phenomenal night. Well, it would be, but to have the kids here
Yeah.
and to have officers sworn, I don't know,
It'd be interesting to see
if it works out.
if you get, what the different questions you'll get from the Webelows and the Girl Scouts.
Well, it was interesting because when I was communicating with the leader of the Girl Scouts, she was going to sort of preempt the girls. And I said, don't do that. I said, because when I met with the boys, they just gave me what came to the, what came to
bubbled
their
up.
head. And it was very original, and I'm going to be really interested to hear what the Girl Scouts have to say. So,
Can I ask, did they hear you went to see the Boy Scouts, and they invited you to the girls?
I'm assuming so. I mean, I know the.
I think it's
I
wonderful.
know the leader of the Girl Scouts. She's
Yeah.
a friend of
Yeah.
my wife's and my daughter's.
Yeah,
but
that's great.
But I'm sure that they are. But I'd like to invite the Girl Scouts to come at a different date if they can make it, because it's fun to have. These are our future leaders.
They
It's
are,
fun to have them in
indeed.
the room, and as one of the Webelow Scouts said very excitedly, I get to be on Channel 22. So, so anyway, correspondence real quickly. We've tackled most of it, but we do have the 2024 Rockingham County warrant, payment of which is due December 17th, 2024. We heard from Mr. Gray earlier in the petition. And Mr. Dean, I think we also spoke about the Drinkwater Road, or if you wanted to elaborate on that any further.
No, I think I said what I wanted to say on it.
Very well. Again, for those of you out there watching, if you'd like to volunteer for any of our boards, committees, or commissions, we have openings, and we'd be very excited to get your application and interview. And again, the patriotic ceremony, Saturday, November 2nd, 2024, that Selectwoman Gilman spoke of.
Mr. Chair, is this trifold reports, committees, and commissions, is that something we're going to distribute physically as well as online?
I believe this is something we've already,
Polls, I thought we.
okay.
Yeah, it's great work.
Board calendar, November 12th, which is a Tuesday, November 25th. I would add that Selectwoman Cowan has already indicated she will not be around on November 25th, so if any of you have an issue preventing you, let me know ahead of time if you would, please. Make sure we have a quorum. We meet on December 9th, and then finally December 23rd for the year 2024.
Good on all those.
Okay.
Good on all those. And speaking of dates, could you hand that to Selectwoman Gilman?
There you are.
Thank you.
Last piece of business this evening, I would ask the board if they would entertain a motion to move into non-public under RSA 91A 32A.
So moved.
Second.
So motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk?
Selectman Chartran,
Aye.
Selectwoman Belanger,
Aye.
and the clerk says aye, Mr. Chair.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. The board will be moving into non-public. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast Channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.